bypassed signal from the AV node. That's in the case of EP and RT. Now, the other type of supraventricular tachycardia you need to know is AV-RT. Okay, let's drop the N and let's go to AV-RT, which is AV reentrant tachycardia. So this is the less common form because it uses a macro. When you say micro versus macro, what do you mean by micro? Small. Macro is big. So this is a large or a bigger circuit than the EV and RT. And this is what's called the bundle of Kent. Okay? Now, the problem is the bundle of Kent also has abnormal qualities. And because there is a bundle of Kent, the depolarization bypasses the AV node. It still travels to the AV node, but because, remember I told you, the ECG picks up the strongest and fastest signal. So, the tachycardia caused by the bundle of Kent is the one that's picked up. Now, we're going to be talking about Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Okay? This is very, very closely associated with what's called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Now, orthodromic AV-RT means this is the most common form where the atria and the ventricles are depolarized sequentially. So that's the direction. Okay, when you say orthodromic, that is the direction. Ortho, okay, from the word orthodox. What's orthodox? Orthodox means normal. Okay, common, orthodox. When you say something's unorthodox, it means it's uncommon. So this is ortho, from the word orthodox, and dromic. Dromic is from the word dramatism, which stands for conduction. Okay? So in this case, the bundle of Kent seen over here, okay? And this is the AV node. Now don't get me wrong, when I say it bypasses the AV node, okay, it doesn't mean that there's no signal in the AV node. But this signal doesn't go through the AV node anymore. Because there's a hole there, technically a hole, the signal, when it travels down, here, when travel gets to the AV node, remember there's a delay, right? The AV node holds the signal momentarily. Unfortunately here, as soon as the signal goes down, it passes directly through the bundle of Kent. Okay? So, in this case, is there going to be a delay? There's no more delay in the signal because of that accessory pathway. Okay? Because, remember, the bundle of Kent technically does not have the physiologic properties of the AV node. We talked about the physiologic properties of the AV node, right? Fewer myofibrils, things that slow the signal down. This one doesn't have it. So what happens here is, so what happens here? In this case, the signal goes down, okay, the AV node, and it goes down the abnormal pathway. This one repolarizes quickly. As the signal from the AV node goes downward, and it goes upward, there's nothing to stop this signal from going back to the atria. This is what you call orthodromic, okay? So the signal goes down here, goes upward, contraction starts. Now, in this case, because remember, if this is normal, what will happen? The signal gets blocked, and then what happens to the tissue? It will start to repolarize, right? So the ventricles will start to fill. Now, in the case of, so what happens here? So after this, okay, in this case, instead of the signal stopping there, the signal proceeds back into the atria, goes back into the AV node, and goes around and around and around. That's what you call a reentrant loop. That's your macro circuit. Remember microcircuit because it goes round and round the AV node. In this case, it goes round from the ventricles back to the atria, down to the ventricles, back to the atria. That's the That's what you call a reentrant loop, okay, your macro circuit. Another feature of AVRT is what's called pre-excitation, as I mentioned this earlier. Okay? So as depolarization comes down from the SE node, it goes to the AV node, gets delayed. Here, as I mentioned, it goes through right away, right? So this tissue here, this heart tissue here, is excited, okay, or depolarized before the tissue below the AV node. That's what you call pre-excitation. Why is this important? Because pre-excitation, okay, what happens there is the PR interval disappears because of pre-excitation. Remember, P, there should be a PR interval, right? Technically, it's a PQ interval, okay? Why? Because it's connected to the Q wave. Back in the old days, I think during the time of my father, when he was in med school, they used to call it PQ interval, but they changed it, made it PR interval. Okay, so technically there's an interval here. But because of pre-excitation at this point, the ECG already picks it up. So it starts to cause the first part of the QRS complex. Okay? And this part creates the second part of the QRS complex. Why is this significant? Because this is what's known as a delta wave. Okay, so now we know there's a P wave, there's a QRS complex, there's a D wave. Have you heard about the U wave? U wave? Was it taught to you? U wave. Okay, we'll take that. Okay? And now there's a delta wave. The delta wave is the hallmark of AVRT. Okay, the delta wave. It shows that there is pre-excitation of the ventricles at this particular point. That's why there's a delta wave. So therefore, delta wave, what happened to the PR interval? Technically it's gone. Alright? So it's a short PR interval. What happened to the QRS complex? Is the QRS complex now normal? Is it prolonged? Is it normal or prolonged? Is it still normal? It's now prolonged. So what do we see here? A delta wave, technically no PR interval, and a prolonged QRS complex. So those are the three